Generally, there's a rule of thumb that you want to begin with whichever is your strongest section. So your first section should be the one that you perform best on. And usually that's going to be the verbal or quantitative sections for most candidates. And it's just a fact that the data insights tends not to be the strongest section. And you can see this from the percentile rankings of the official GMAC. Most people have a lower data insight section score than any other section score. And that's probably because it's the least familiar to people who are not prepping as well as they should. So you'll want to pick whatever your strongest section is because your exam is slightly adaptive by section. The GMAC has been rather cagey about how this works, but they have not denied the idea that the sections are slightly adaptive. So your overall score can be impacted by one section into another. So you want to start with whatever your strength is. And again, that's usually the verbal or quantitative. Hopefully you're enjoying the tips in this video. And if you are, please do like it and consider subscribing so you can get notified when additional videos are released by MyGuru. Additionally, check out the links down below because they can take you to this page where you can request a free consultation with an expert GMAT tutor such as myself. And they'll also show you where you can access our online self-paced prep course brought to you by MyGuru and Analyst Prep. Now, for most people, you're going to want to put the data insights section second, and that's because it's harder to focus on and it's a transition from one section to the other. You're going to have verbal concepts and quantitative concepts within the data insight section. So it's kind of a nice bridge to whatever section you are going to leave for last. So your third section is just going to be whichever remains of the quant or verbal. So this is not necessarily your strongest or weakest section. It's just what isn't data insights. And the reason we don't want to leave that data insights for the end is because you often find that folks tend to have a little bit of a fade in attention, and the data insights just requires a lot of attention to detail. Quantitative, even if it's not necessarily your strength, you usually are able to note the specifics of each question because there just isn't that much information per quantitative question. And then similarly for the verbal, if you're leaving the verbal for last, even if you are struggling a little bit with attention to detail, your details are going to matter less as opposed to like big pictures pieces when it comes to critical reasoning or reading comprehension. Of course, personal preference is always going to dictate more than anything else, but of the six options, you want to have these considerations in mind when you make your choice. And ultimately, remember, you will never want to change your approach on test day because that's just going to cause problems. So pick your order probably by the time you're choosing your third practice exam and stick to it because really the worst thing you can do is not go according to plan.